Thank you so much for having me, woman of God, in your ministry and platform, ministry of marriage and helping people in this regard is something that is dear to my heart, and I really love the work that you are doing. And yeah, thank you to everyone that is here today. Shows that we've got people that want to strengthen their relationships, their marriages, and I hope to pour into your heart today, not from a place of being an expert, but from a place of the experiences that I've had over the last 10 years of marriage and how God has, shaped my knowledge, my understanding, and my experiences. And yeah, I think so. So the woman of God, I think she heard about me or saw me somewhere where I was sharing my testimony, and that's something that attracted her to my ministry, which was my marriage testimony. So, what I'm going to share today is going to be related to that, right? So, why should you listen to me today regarding this? Apart from the fact that I'm going to share my life story, which I believe will be beneficial. I've seen God through my life story and the things that I've learned help people reconcile and restore their marriages at a brink of separation or some even separated. Now that doesn't mean that this session today will be for people that are in conflict or are separated only. It will be for all of us because some of us are actually emotionally separated while physically we are together. So this will be beneficial to everyone else who is in the session. Now, my name, as already said, just to give a brief background and introduction into who I am. My name is Vusi Kokela. I am a pastor, yes, definitely, but I don't lead a um, ministry or a household of faith anymore. I will share why I've stopped leading the household of faith since 2019 or 2020, but I'm still in the ministry and I am supporting. I'm playing a more supportive role now. And then, yeah, my life work is then now mainly to reconcile people, to help people with reconciliation and restoration. Yeah, I wonder if God was intentional with that also because I'm actually born on the 16th of December, which is also called the Day of Reconciliation. So yeah, something that I actually realized last year. Yeah, but anyway, married for 10 years. We've got three, my wife and I, Usindi Kokela, we've got three kids. We have our daughter Uzoe, who is 8 years old. We've got our son Umtogozisi, who is 7 years old, and we've got our last born Umeloguhle, who is 2 years old. And we are based in Cullinan, east of Pretoria. Yeah, so I think that's a little bit of what I can share for now, and then I can get into my message. What I would like for you to do while I am speaking, though, is for you guys to do two things. Please help me share. One, I'd like for you to, if there's anything that speaks to you, because my background is pastoring, and maybe you can say amen, hallelujah, and you can't keep your mics unmuted, maybe because of the kids or things that are happening, I'd love for you to use the chat as your voice, right? So in the chat, let's have a virtual box, a virtual voice on the chat. Just say amen. Just also speak back to me, like I will know what spoke to you. I'll also know if I need to repeat something. So my chat will continually be open so that I can see, but so that you can encourage me as well, especially because I'm going to be sharing my life story with you. So I'll need a little bit of encouragement with that. That's number one, what I would like for you to do for me. Yeah, maybe let's just have that one thing only. That's fine. Thank you so much. All right. Okay. So, guys, as I said, my message will be around restoration, right? My message being around restoration, I want to define what restoration is because I don't want us to limit it to just the restoration of a physical separation where either people are divorced or they are taking what we call constructive separation. This is when two people omunye uhlala le, omunye ubuyele kibo, for the sake of pastors or counselors to try to help them work through a situation. I'm not just talking about physical separation. In fact, all physical separation start as an emotional separation. In this case, you've got a couple that is either just not talking to each other, or they are talking to each other, but the other one is always just criticizing the other or bashing. It's just toxic in how they are communicating, or they are just defensive, or they are stonewalling. There could be a lot of toxic behavior in that, and that relationship might as well be separated. And it is separated via communication or intimacy or or emotionally or spiritually. So I want to talk about the restoration in all those levels. We'll focus on four main ones, which were very key to restoring my own relationship with my wife. So, as I said, we are married for 10 years now. In the last 7 years, so in the last 3 years of our marriage, we've been together and it has been our happiest marriage ever. And if we had not gotten back together, Umeloguhle would not be born. But in the first 7 years of our marriage, we separated 4 times. That gives you almost 12, 13, 14 months approximately, where each 12 or 13 or 14 months there's a break. So it was like competition, who's leaving now, who's going to Bekekaya, type of a thing. Or what will be the reason now? Is it toothpaste or socks? So that type of a thing. And the last one really being very ugly, spanning or almost, if not over a year. The kids, being caught in the middle, actually being removed, escolwen, and all of that. Very hectic. Now, the Lord did restore us after a year, and He taught me some principles that my wife and I spoke about, because on the other side, she also was learning certain things, and we came back together. And those are the principles I've been using mainly to help men, but even though I've had some women as well, but mainly men who wants to restore their relationships, whether it's intimacy, emotional, intellectual separation, whatever form of separation that has been. And over the years, I've only seen one relationship over, like if we have 10 men that came to me, I can only remember one that was never restored. So by God's grace, these are things that work. Now, let's start by talking about what are the things that normally people think will restore a relationship. And I'm not saying these things are not important, right? But there is a better or a even higher and more important thing which I will share at the end. Number one, or maybe let me talk about myself. I used to think that one, what will be key to our restoration will be finances. Am I saying finances are not important in marriage? No. But I later found out and realized that my wife did not leave because we lost our business and wasn't coming back because we were in a financial crisis. That was not the main issue, and it never really is. I've seen people who are, as broke and as financially challenged as can be. In fact, I've gone to the poorest of the poor that stay together more than people that are well off. So it's not really that financial issue. Then we also sometimes believe that if I pray more, pray harder, and yeah, this one for me, and I'm sorry for laughing. I'm laughing because in the church circles where you think and believe that because of our spiritual inclination and how we can pray in tongues for the longest and fast, 40 days, 40 nights. By the way, because I mentioned something doesn't mean I'm against it, right? I sometimes exaggerate matters to prove a point, but I'm not against it. I fast, I pray, very important. So because I mentioned something, do not be offended and think I'm against it. I'm just trying to make a point. Now, that being the case, you know, some of the scariest and worst cases I've dealt with in my 3 years of counseling are actually in the church. So you begin to realize that just because I can pray hours and fast for days does not translate to reconciliation. In fact, some of the people that fasted and prayed for their marriages have not reconciled. I am not saying fasting and prayer is not important. You must pray. Prayer works. But there are higher currencies. My spiritual father talks about something he calls excellent knowledge. And he says excellent knowledge is not necessarily the difference between knowing something and not knowing something. He says a more excellent knowledge is actually having the knowledge that says what works in this specific matter, right? If I have to eat a banana, what works would be me planting a seed of a banana. That is an excellent knowledge. Someone else might have a knowledge of fasting. It's good knowledge for that time, but for me eating a banana, it might not help that I fast 30 days for a banana tree. A more excellent knowledge would be what is the right thing to do in this matter. So there are certain things that are more superior knowledge in certain matters. Okay. Now I've spoken about finances, I've spoken about spiritual praying and all of that, which are also important. Others you can probably share that you have had on or here, can be sexual intimacy and many other things. But here's what a term I want to introduce to you that you can put on chat for me. This term is called AC. And what AC stands for is what we call appreciation capital. If you can put that on chat, I would appreciate it, because the more you engage with me, the more you learn and the more you retain, right? I don't want you to just be someone that dozes off. I want you to engage. Yes. Appreciation capital. So if you are going to build a business, you will understand often that you may require capital. Now, this capital might not always be financial capital. Sometimes it can be human resource capital. But basically, capital just means a resource that you can use when you need to build something. It's a resource you can count on. Now, this appreciation capital, the Goodman Institute, that is one of the leaders in the marriage counseling space, although they don't call it appreciation capital, but they have found through a research that they've done over the years, counseling many marriages, that relationships where people restore quickly and easier, it's not because of the magnitude of the problem. Because a lot of us think, yeah, you see, I can forgive if he lies, but I can never forgive if he cheats or she cheats. Like a deal breaker, even Christians these days, I hear them talk about deal breakers. Deal breaker is not what we think is. Deal breakers are actually a deficiency in appreciation capital, or a lack of appreciation capital. And this is what the Goodman Institute realized, is that they actually had more cases of people that forgave, and not only forgave quicker in issues that a lot of us call deal breakers, where someone slept with someone, and sometimes not even one person, and those relationships were restored and were now happier than some people that divorced over socks that are on the floor, or over someone else sending money back home. Like things that we normally think are simple have gotten relationships broken and not restored, and things that we think are more difficult have then been restored. And what they realized as they speak is that what they realized was that the relationships that found it easier to restore are relationships where they had built trust through appreciation. So if over, let's say, in a period of 3 months, in the 2 months, I have been investing in appreciation capital, in the 2 months of the 3 months we are together, I have been investing in appreciation capital. And then on the third month, you cheat on me. And then there's another couple where in the whole 3 months, there hasn't been appreciation capital. And then in the 1 month, Omunye sends money back home. And both these couples are in a conflict. They are saying these ones, even though their issue looks small, but because of lack of appreciation capital, they are likely to not reconcile, or their reconciliation is likely to take 5 working days. You know, those relationships where omunye magakwatile, omunye gets over it quickly, another one takes 5 working days to be okay, or 30 working days. But in emsebenzini they call it notice. You know, there are those couples, or one person in a couple, they serve a notice when there's a conflict. Like they'll just give you 30 days of notice. You just know we are either not talking, or if we are talking, I'm just gonna get contempt and such bad things. So these guys who had no appreciation capital will take longer or even separate. But they found that even though the issue is worse, those that have built appreciation capital then were able to reconcile quicker. And what is the issue? Appreciation capital means that at a time when you offend me, I have an investment that I can withdraw from that says to me that you are not a person that is trying to harm me. Okay. You have two brains. What is everything? Well, you have one brain, but technically it can be divided into two brains. And part of your two brains, you've got what we call your policing brain, and then you've got what we call your judging brain. Now, 80% of your time, you are functioning on your policing brain, and 20% of your time, you are functioning on your judging brain. Now, the aim of your policing brain is just to protect you, is to make sure that you live, you survive, and you have sustenance and survival. So the police, all he wants to do is to fight or to run away. All he wants to do is to protect you. He cannot, the police part of your brain does not judge things critically, does not judge things objectively, doesn't care. If he feels like, hey, Okari, this person is attacking me, the police officer will either attack back or run away, flight or fight or freeze. That's the police part of your brain. But now, your judging part of the brain is what you then need to engage when issues are difficult. Unfortunately, that does not happen. Here's what I said to a friend of mine recently. I said to him, you are trying to speak to your wife logically when the issue is never going to be solved logically. The issue is an emotional issue. And that's what people come to me in the sessions. It's like, yeah, this does not make sense to me. How can he be angry or she be angry because of this? I'm like, you are so right, it does not make sense. But right now, you are trying to reason at a logical level when relationships break at an emotional level. So relationships break at an emotional level. So logic, it does not matter that you are right or wrong. Do you want to be right or do you want to relate? Relationships are not about being right, they're about relating. So you've got to make a decision if you want to be right or you want to relate. If you want to be right, you'll focus on the logic and the rightness of things. If you want to relate, you will then realize that what is responding here is the policing brain. Okay, why was I saying that? I was saying that to say to you that when then there are tensions and conflicts, a lot of us want to think that we are thinking when we are ahead. We are not. We are not. Here's what my counselor said to me when I went for counseling. My counselor said to me, he asked me a question. He said, when last did you read a book on relationships or attend anything that has to do with relationships? And I said, I think it was in high school when I was just thinking about dating and entering the dating scene. And he said to me, are you telling me that you are doing marriage more than 20 or 18 years later with the same knowledge that you used 18 years ago when you were in high school? I don't remember the right numbers now. But basically, was saying, are you telling me you are doing marriage with the same knowledge of 18 years ago or whatever years ago when you were in high school? A lot of us are doing relationships the same way we saw our parents, the same way we saw our grandparents and other people. So what that means is that we are doing relationships from a survival mode. We are doing relationships from the police officer, so that even when we think we are thinking things through, we are not. It is that automatic brain again. So that automatic brain, another way to look at these two sides of the brain is, think of a manual car and the automatic car. You have your automatic brain and you have your manual brain. 80% of the time, 80% of the time, you are on your automatic brain. So if I buy a car that is on automatic, I might feel like I'm doing much, but I'm not doing as much as a person on a manual car. Now, that car on automatic, even though it has a technology that runs it, that technology was set to run that way by someone else. So a lot of us are doing marriages based on a setting that was set either in high school or by our grandparents. We have not reset. And what I'm going to share with you today is some messages and some ways to reset so that even though you don't know who set the way you do your marriage, but you can try at least to be intentional about your marriage. So anyway, so that's what I'm saying now to say to you, if then that is the case, and what is happening is that forgiveness is challenged. It is often challenged not because people don't care and whatnot. It's challenged because the police officer does not trust, that part of your brain does not trust the other person. I want you, if you don't remember anything today, please remember this. Anytime we are in conflict, the first part of my brain that responds is the police officer. The police officer always arrests before we go to court to judge matters. Now, as the arrests respond, or the police officer is the first respondent on the scene, the first respondent always judges cases not based on logic, but he judges cases based on survival, sustenance, and emotions. How do I feel safe? If this continues, can I live like this for long? Right? That's the first respondent all the time. And what then needs to make the police officer not respond as a police officer is if the police officer can trust the other person or the other party. Now, it's not money that is going to make me trust the other person or the police officer. It's not good intimacy or sexual intercourse that's going to make the police officer trust the other person, that is reconcile quicker. It's not how much they pray or how much I pray that's going to make police officers can shoot past us. Police officers can arrest rich people. The hawks do it all the time. Your police officer brain will trust more a person that has had a conversation, especially around appreciation. Like if I say to police officers, you are doing a wonderful job, guys, you are keeping us safe. As a police officer hearing that, I am like, okay, this is a person that loves the law. He's not a lawless person. Automatically, my guard goes down and I trust that person. That's what happens when you build appreciation capital. The other person's police officer brain lowers the guard down so that even on the day that you create a situation or you do something, the police officer that is often responding most of the time says, but I can trust this person. I can trust this person. That's why they forgive things that you would not even forgive because of appreciation capital. Now, how or what are some of the ways we build appreciation capital? Okay, I've got about 5 or so minutes to finish up. Let's round it. What are some of the ways that you build appreciation capital? Basically, simple terms, but I'm going to give 4 levels to that. One of the ways is to really begin to be a person that appreciates others and express gratitude. Now, to appreciate others is not just by your words, it's also by deed. Your actions need to show that you appreciate me. When, when you have a headache and you engage in sexual intercourse while you have a headache, you are saying to me, I appreciate you. It's never even about intimacy. It's about building appreciation capital. When I come back from work extremely tired and I help my wife bath the kids, it's not even about being domesticated and whatnot. It's about saying, I see how hard you are working and I'm appreciating you by just helping you. So those actions, when I buy chocolates on Valentine's, it's not about the chocolate. It's about building appreciation capital. That capital is what I am going to need someday because I am a man and I have flaws. God is God and I'm not God. I'm gonna make mistakes. I'm gonna fall short. But if I've invested and built enough appreciation capital, then that relationship can survive some of the stormiest weathers. And it's no one's responsibility to build appreciation capital. It is your responsibility. You have 100% responsibility to building capital. It's not 50-50. It's not 80-20. It's not that men must love first so that it can be easy to submit. It's not that women must be submissive. It's very easy to love submissive women. No, it's 100%. I've got 100% responsibility to build appreciation capital, even when I'm not being appreciated. You've got 100% responsibility to build appreciation capital, even when I'm not appreciating you. If you think you are spiritual, you build appreciation capital. Christ died for us while we were sinners. He built appreciation capital while he knew we would even reject him and not accept him. While I was enjoying my varsity life, drinking my life away and my health and all these things, he saved me numerous times from car accidents and near-death experiences while he was building appreciation capital. If you think you are spiritual, you don't pray and fast for me 30 days, while in those 30 days you don't talk to me. While those 30 days you criticize me. While those 30 days you undermine me. No. Idla mntwana sekhaya and build appreciation capital. Vice versa. Quick things. 4 levels of appreciation. Number 1, we've got to build physical appreciation. This is where we do physical things for each other, tangible, materialistic things for each other. One of the things I started doing when we were separated, I went back to gym. I went back to gym. I worked on my body. Why? I am appreciating my wife. Because if I don't work out, it will not work out. So I must work out so that we can work out. I worked out. Only later when we reconciled, she said, you know what? One of the things that really became attractive again is your commitment to working out. And it's one of the things I talk to guys about. I say, the Bible says, love yourself. Love the other person as you love yourself. So if you can work on yourself as a man and care for your body as a man, how can you care for someone else's body? That's what I talk to men about. So those type of things build appreciation capital. He's doing something, she's doing something for us. My mother passed away, my dad having suffered, taking care. Well, he wouldn't put it like that. He loved her so much. But taking care of my mom wasn't easy. So if my mom loved us and my dad the way she said she did, was it too much for her to be healthy for us? So those things build appreciation capital. Another thing that builds appreciation capital is intellectual capital. So physical capital, intellectual capital. One thing that broke us apart with my wife is that when she spoke about music, I could not respond. My wife is a musician. When she said, did you hear how that guy sang? Man, that was a E flat or this, he was out of tune. I could not respond. Here's what I said. But I don't know anything about music. We've been married for 7 years. All these 7 years, you never made effort to know anything about music. Then it means you never cared to build intellectual capacity between us so that when it is necessary, we can withdraw. The other one is emotional capital. Emotional capital. Guys, I was depressed. My wife was depressed. Work on your emotional capital and invest on each other, on yourself emotionally. Here's the thing. You've got 3 immune systems. You've got your spiritual immune system, you've got your emotional immune system, you've got your physical emotional immune system. When physically you are not okay, it affects your emotions. When emotionally you are not okay, it affects your physical performance, it affects your marriage. So work on your emotional capital. And then lastly, that is the spiritual capital. Never leave it out of the equation. If you look at that word, simply called pies. It's simply called pies. And for 12 months, I worked on my pies. My wife not being there, I worked on my physical, intellectual, emotional, spiritual. When we spoke, we could engage more. We could connect more. Here's where saints fail, and I'm going to bring you back. They want to just build spiritual capital only. Man, I pray and fast. I was a pastor, tongue talking, devil kicking, healing ministry, spiritual, but separating every 13 months. Because I thought you survive just on one part, the spiritual capital. So I had to go back and build all these capitals, because if you are just burning on one light, you are not as bright as someone who's burning on all 4 lights. Diversify your capital. Can't invest in just one. Invest in all 4, because you don't know which one your relationship is going to need when things are not working out. Thank you so much for listening to me. Yeah, I want to give back to our host.
So my question from you, man of God, is then how did you develop this AC when you now bounce back, or when at what point in your marriage, after all these breakups, the 4 breakups that you had, when you realized actually this is what is lacking? And how did you, someone is on the call wondering, okay, where do I start? How did you start? You are on mute.
Thank you. Thank you. So for me, we are separated. And during that separation, I'm learning all these things. God is teaching me all these things. Now, what I then do is I begin to build, and a little bit difficult because we are in different houses, but doable. So I begin to build that appreciation capital by, buying things, going to drop them off. I mean, at one point, some of these things are rejected, they are not appreciated. You come back, you find that those things are maybe not used or something like that. And that's the thing. If you start something that was not there before, the other person's police officer is obviously going to suspect something's like, something's out of the ordinary here. So don't take it personal, like, oh, ban rejecta ukwatile now. No, they are not even doing it intentionally. It's the
Mhm.
automatic brain that is suspicious. And you have to go through that resistance and break the suspicious barrier, and then you will get in. So I started doing those type of things, sending SMSs, and then you are not receiving feedback. But the most important thing with all these things, it's not what you are doing so much
Mhm.
as the consistency of those things.
Okay.
So when the spouse is not okay with you, they are not looking for an event. We don't trust people
Yeah.
through events. We trust people through consistency. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, okay, come on now. Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, now I can trust you. So that consistency is key. And I had to be consistent over a period of a year. And that thing was then rebuilding. In fact, that is actually partnering with God, helping him
Mhm.
have something to work with when he's reconciling you guys.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. And I understand that you work with a lot of couples and especially
Sure,
on restoration, just helping them reconcile, right? So, what
sure.
will be your advice to someone, especially I will speak to wives, a
Yeah,
wife who says, "Man of God, I have been addressing these issues, be it my spouse taking care of their health or
yeah,
just self-development or
yeah,
just appreciating me. I have raised that issues, I have been pointing out things that we need to develop on and everything, and nothing seems to be working. I think hence we now resort to prayer, right?
yeah,
Trusting God that
yeah,
this
yeah,
man
yeah,
will eventually change and God, he will
yeah,
hear me, right?
yeah,
So what will be your advice? And I think also just to husband who might listen to this at a later
yeah,
stage.
yeah. So every relationship will sort of have a unique thing, but I'm going to speak more generally, okay? So of course, praying is always the first thing. Like I'm not against that. I was just saying good,
Mhm.
sometimes get short. So that is
Mhm.
definitely don't stop. That is the key. That is the place to start because God will work in man's heart. But then what you want to do and what I've realized most of the time is two things. One, people often ask the other person to do something that they themselves are not consistent in.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
what you want to do is to sort of build a lifestyle. Here's what people, especially men, but generally people,
Mhm.
respond to more than anything. They respond to models or role models or modeling
Okay.
before they respond to words. So Jesus, God realized, lento ukuthi ngibatshele and write 10 commandments and all of these things. You know what? Let me go down and model this thing. And from modeling, Jesus walking and living sacrificially, something happens. So I find women especially, but again, I'm not limiting it to them, Pet, often will want to talk more than they model.
Oh.
Men will do it as well, more than they model. And when I see something working good, it becomes attractive to me and I want to try it out as well. So one of the things I would say is then do it, live it out experientially. Let's see the benefits and then say, you know what? This thing, man, you've been commenting about, you're saying it's working. It's actually this coach, it's actually this counselor. Maybe you can come with me. And often that works better in relationships than just, you know, talking omlom.
Mm-mm. I know, I hear you. Leading by example, right?
Yes,
Being more practical than you preaching it.
yes,
And
yes.
then the last one from my side is, and I'll also just generalize, but
Sure.
most men, husbands, don't like counseling. They don't like seminars. We have to drag them to this
True,
marriage
true,
seminars to read about
true,
marriage, to talk about it. Even
true,
I think when men gather, they don't really talk much about their marriages. They
true.
rather talk about politics, ministry, anything else except marriage, right?
Yeah,
So then how did you did mention that the last time you read about marriage was in high school or varsity,
yeah,
and
sure.
your marriage counselor asked you that. So how did you get to that point of taking this serious and or seeing it as a necessity?
Yeah, yeah. I want to really thank God there. It was not an easy thing for me, but I think because I wanted to save my marriage at all cost, I then went and did this thing. But maybe just a sort of um, change of perspective. I also experientially see that men don't like counseling, right? It's an experiential fact, but it's not entirely true. Also, here's why I say that. It's not who men are and they just don't like counseling. It's just how we've been brought up. And I'm going to tie this, and having this understanding is going to help. So, as men, we are more brought up as providers and protectors. And that type of mindset then has us in a place where we think emotions and talking are more for nurturers and are more for women. And even today, that's something that you still get even in the church. So it goes back to how our brains have been domesticated, the same way you domesticate an animal. We've been domesticated as men not to really appreciate or see value in counseling and talking. So, as a woman, your first step, rather than trying to convince me into counseling, it is first to show me the value of counseling, to re-domesticate me so that I view this thing differently because over the last 30 years or 40 years of my life, I've been trained otherwise. So that might look like you going to counseling alone. And ngikubone ukuthi awusangicriticize. And I'm like, what? Man, this thing is working. I know this woman. I've been married to her for so long. Man, this thing is working, right? That's how it looked like for me. It looked like for me, roles were reversed. I was going to counseling alone until they were like, oh, whatever is happening to this man, can I take along? So sometimes that's what it will look like. Okay.
Sure. Very, 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 very important questions. And I think just to add on what you said, for the wives that are on suitable helper, we have been also just receiving testimonies of husbands saying, oh, I can see a change. Oh, okay, so Vera, this is working. So we've got suitable husbands group, and now they're interested to join in the husbands and really opening up because they can see, oh, there is transformation. So when these women gather, they're actually building one another. So, oh, this thing is working. So they're buying into it. I like what you said. Show me the value of counseling and I will follow. Show me that it works. Show me that this diet plan works and I will follow. When I see you transforming, and I'll follow.